What we're going to be doing today is paste fishing. Now, paste fishing is something that can blow a lot of people's minds. It can be one of the most frustrating methods to get right. However, if you do get it right, it can amass a massive weight of big fish. The reason I say paste can be frustrating is if you don't get your mix right, your rigs right, or you're a bit too hesitant striking on the bites and stuff like that, then what happens is you end up striking your paste off every 30 seconds and you come in and out without a fish on. The biggest thing with paste fishing I always find is discipline, and this is what I try to get across to people, is when you fish in paste, it's being able to stay in the exact same position, not move your float, and it's almost like a garden gnome, not moving at all, until that float has given you just the right positive indication for you to strike at, and then you'll be into a fish. What we don't want to do is strike at all the little liners, which is going to cause foul hookers, missed bites, paste coming off, and as I said, that's where it becomes frustrating. There's a few reasons why paste is so good when you're fishing a silty venue. One of them being, as the fish come and feed in silt, they churn up the bottom. You'll often see lots of fizzing, bubbling, big clouds of silt coming up. And one reason why paste is good is because you've almost got a counterweight at the bottom of the lake bed. So as the fish are moving about and it is chaos on the deck, your line is staying tight down to your paste. The next thing would be how the fish actually feed when they're in the silt. So I've always found it quite exaggerated as they inhale, exhale. It's big movements, almost gill feeding in amongst it. So that's why we're feeding small particles. And that paste works so well because they can literally just gulp up your ball of paste in the process. And that's when you get these really explosive bites. We're at Royal Berkshire Fishery today. We're actually fishing on Lake 3, which is the match lake. However, we do have 3 lakes here. We have lakes 1, 2 and 3. Lake 1 is more of our specie lake with some big carp. There's big roach, perch to 4 pound 10, so some real specimens in there. And then 2 and 3 are very mixed. So stocked very much the same with smaller carp, F1s, bit of everything really, and a nice head of silvers as well. We've also got an on-site tackle shop, cafe, so pretty much got everything you need on site. For those that know, I'm fishing peg 60 on Lake 3. This is an absolutely brilliant peg and probably one of the most famous on the venue. You've got big bed of rushes, a nice expanse of open water, good margins, it's a whole package really. So hence why we're sat on it today, because there's some big fish that live in the rushes. The other great thing about paste fishing is you can be quite selective. So if you're fishing a venue with a lot of big fish and big carp, you can fish larger pieces of paste, and you can even roll them in micros to create a bit more of attraction, and this will help single out them real big double figure carp. However, if you do have a venue like what we've got here today on Lake 3, where there's a lot of carp, but there's also a lot of F1s, you can put on smaller bits, and that will help you catch the F1s as well as the carp. And then it's just a case of, on the day, trying to work out what's in your peg at what time of the day. Probably the most important thing with paste fishing is getting your mix right for your actual paste. Now there's 100 things that you can make paste out of. You can make out of ground bait, micro pellets, scalded pellets, people do it out of all sorts. However, for me, the paste that I found best is the Blake's Coarse Carp. The reason for this is it's almost like crushed pellets, and I find that when you mix that just with water, nothing else, as that starts to break down, little bits of pellet will fall off it and almost flake off it on the bottom, creating a very big attraction for them fish. One thing I've learned over the years is the consistency of your paste. So a lot of people struggle if you make it too wet, it falls off too quickly. And equally, if you make it too stiff, the fish generally aren't going to inhale it quite as easily. So what I usually do is I try and get it just so it's a nice consistency, almost a little bit sloppy, but not too much, just so it's still got a bit of firmness to it. And then when I go to put it on the hook, I will literally just dunk my hands in water, mould your paste on the hook, and then after that there's a few other things you can do, such as just dunking that little ball of paste in water again, rolling it in a few micros, creates a bit more added attraction. But the key to getting that consistency right is not making it too sloppy to start with. As long as I've got that tub of water on my side tray, I can tailor it to what I need on the day. Potentially one of the easiest rigs to set up is the paste rig. This is how I set mine up. So I've got a nice strong durable 020 mainline, and then straight down to a hook length, which I'm using one of the Acolyte pre-tied hook lengths in a size 12 margin carp to 019. A nice strong heavy hook that's not going to let you down. In terms of shot, I've literally only got 2 shot on the line. One just above the hook length loop and one just below the float. I found this to be the best position just so that it keeps everything straight and it also reduces tangles when shipping out. This just coincides with the float I'm using. I usually use a 0.2 or a 0.3. I'm not trying to actually shot the float so that it sits properly. All I want is for it to just register slightly, and then the paste is going to do the rest and hold it nice and straight down to the bottom. In doing that, if my paste comes off, then my float's going to lift up and I know that I need to ship in and put a new bit on. The float I'm using today is an AS5 carp, which is one of the new floats with an interchangeable bristle. This is brilliant because if the light changes throughout the day, you can literally just pop the bristle out and then change it for whatever colour suits the light conditions on the day. The other thing I like about these bristles are they're solid, so they're not hollow. And the best thing about this for paste fishing is there's no buoyancy in the bristle. So if I was fishing a nice thick 2mm hollow bristle, that bristle would be trying to pull my hook through the paste. With these solid bristles, there's nothing trying to do that. So it just means that my hook's going to be sat secure in my lump of paste on the deck until a fish takes it. Another thing I like to do with paste fishing is always have a couple of back shot. So I've got two number 8 back shot, around 2 to 3 inches from the tip of the float. I just find that when that paste is settling and your rig's getting moved about by carp feeding, it just keeps everything a bit neater and tidier. And it also helps with a bit of discipline in I almost hold against the back shot instead of the flow. So I'm not got any of them juddery, is it bite, strike. I'm just holding against them back shot, touching the water, and then when that bite happens and the float shoots under, I'm straight in contact with fish. So that's it, that's my paste rig, simple as that, nothing to it, you can knock one up in around 20 seconds. Feeding is obviously another really important aspect with paste fishing. Today on my side tray I've got over-wetted micro pellets, I've got some hard 4mm and I've got some ground bait. What I like to do is adjust my feeding as my session goes on. So ground bait, for instance, is a great way of bringing fish into your peg, however it can send them a bit crazy. So if the ground bait is sending them mad, what we'll do is we'll start introducing more micros into the peg. And then on the flip side, even micros sometimes can be too small a particle, especially in deep water. So that's when the hard 4mm come in. Slightly heavier bait that goes straight down to the bottom. However, if I started feeding hard 4mm from the start, I might not have that initial attraction to bring fish into your peg. So that's why we have them 3 baits. So ground bait is our main attraction. The micros are just to actually get them feeding, and 4mm are if they're going a bit too mad and you just want to pin them down on the deck with a heavier bait. So as we mentioned on this method, the bites can be explosive. And what this means is when you hook them, your peg can erupt, they're going to shoot into the nearest cover possible, and this is where you need the right gear for the job. The pole I'm using today is the Rigidex. It's a pole I've only recently acquired, and I've only used it a couple of times, but its strength and rigidity is second to none. And when you've got fish that are diving into the reeds and you have to lean into them a little bit, that's where you need something you can rely on. Elastic choice today is the 2.6mm Power Pull margin elastic, which is the aqua blue colour. I love this elastic for this style of fishing, purely because it's soft enough on the strike, so when we're catching F1s you're not bumping them off. However, when I do hook some of them big carp and they try to get in them rushes, it's strong enough to steer them away. That's it for today. We've had a great day catching some F1s and some nice big carp. If you haven't fished paste before, I hope this video gives you the confidence to go out and give it a go, as it can be a really exciting method to fish.